See, our fire chief is showing his Boston colors. They must still be in the running, Rick. Just a couple more minutes as people are just logging in.
Mr. Mayor, we have no one waiting in the queue, and we have 27 people on board. Actually, now we have 30. And if you could kindly ask people to give us their name and address, it would be appreciated.
Mr. Clerk, did you want them to give the name and address as they speak or beforehand?
I would say before they speak, if you don't mind.
Certainly. So would you like that now, sir?
Just whenever you let the first person speak would be fine.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. No one waiting in the queue, sir?
I'm just letting the 29th person in.
Okay.
No one waiting now.
Thank you. All right, we'll get started then. And thank you and good evening, everyone, for welcome to our first ever virtual town house or open house for our arena. Council and staff are looking forward to an engaging information sharing regarding the funding opportunity and how to best utilize this opportunity. This meeting is being recorded. Please remain on mute unless it is your turn to speak. The federal government is providing Canadian municipalities an opportunity for funding and projects by putting in applications to their Green and Inclusive Community Buildings program. The objective is to improve the availability and condition of community buildings while aligning to the goals of Canada's climate plan, which includes reducing carbon emissions and reducing greenhouse gases. Eligible retrofits must include green retrofit measures, and where applicable, must include measures that increase the overall accessibility and/or safety of the building. Most of the funding available, $860 million, is available for retrofit projects and $430 million for new build projects, meaning there are more opportunities to be approved for a retrofit project compared to a new build. I will now call upon CAO Mandy Barron to provide more information and the original objectives provided to SEMA. SEMA design team. Manny, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, you essentially said exactly a little bit of what I was going to say. So originally, when this funding came out, we kind of discussed with council, if you remember, what opportunities were present and what kind of projects we can likely take on. And there were some very constructive conversations. Lots of great ideas thrown around, and to be honest with you, we're very lucky to have a council that's so passionate with regards to our community and the needs of our residents. So when we kind of came out at the end, one of the ideas is to maybe take the existing community hall and turn it into a gym facility. There was also an idea of a walking track, kind of on the, for lack of a better word, the second level. There was a lot of talk about making sure that both, the users, so the figure skating club, the recreation hockey players, the Drayton Minor hockey, all had adequate space to use. So essentially, we just wanted to throw some ideas around on how to better utilize the space. And that being said, we engaged SEMA and worked with Lawrence Cudlick, who's on the line here. And the design that Lawrence has come up with is quite impressive. But of course, with all that, being a municipality that we are, there was some feedback. We've asked for feedback. Certain councillors asked for feedback, and again, passionate group that we are in Mapleton received a great deal of feedback with regards to what can be done. And there was pools or second ice pads. So it was quite an interesting exercise. But at the end of the day, like you've mentioned, Your Worship, July 6th is the application date. We want to hear from the public. Time is of the essence, and of course, we have to respect the ratepayer as how much money we're going to invest. So essentially, we have Lawrence here that can kind of go through his ideas and what we asked for him to put forth. And I'd be happy to answer any questions whatsoever as it relates to the grant, to the cost, to the best of my abilities when called upon.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. And just as we continue on, I just want to thank Randy Pettipies for coming on today, MPP Randy Pettipies, and welcome, Randy. And we know you're a great supporter of every initiative that goes on in the community, and we look forward to further initiatives with the provincial government once we find some funding for us. And we got Keith here from John Nader's office. John was unable to come on tonight, but Keith is here from his office as this is a federal funding. And Keith will be relaying information back to John so he can support our application with the federal government. And as Mandy said that we do have Lawrence Cudlick here. Welcome, Lawrence, back to our council again. And Lawrence will be able to answer any questions when it comes to the design and ideas when it comes to this piece that we're doing or potentially doing if we get the funding. So we'll now go into our conversation portion of the meeting, which will allow you to speak, and we're going to let you use the raise hand function. You should have a raise hand function somewhere on your screen. Anybody have a raise hand function? If not, I don't see one on mine. That's why I'm asking. Okay, we do have some hands, so good. So we have a raise hand function, so we'll go to that portion. And we want your input. This is why we're having the public meeting, and we had the public survey, which we had a tremendous response on the public survey, and this is great. And we just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak. So we're going to allot you 2 minutes to speak, and we want it to be kept respectful. Remember, we are recording this, and we will ask if there's any questions for SEMA or if there's any questions for staff, please use that 2 minute time to do that as well. So as I mentioned earlier, please remain on mute unless you are called upon. So we do have some people with hands up. Mr. Clerk, did you see who's got the hands up? I can't see them on my end. I think Mr. Driscoll had, Neil, did you have your hand up? Neil Driscoll, did you have your hand up?
I was just showing you my fancy little hands up signal you were looking for.
Oh, okay, because I don't see him on my end, so maybe I don't have that option. Who would like to speak first? Would you like to speak first, Neil?
No, at this point, no thanks.
Okay. Anybody have comments they'd like to speak first? Dale? Okay, Dale Franklin. And as clerk, Mr. Clerk, you wanted the name and what else did you want, Mr. Clerk?
Name and address would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Right.
You start with your name and address, please.
Thank you, Mayor Davidson. I actually couldn't find my little hand reaction button. So my name is Dale Franklin and I live at 7138 Wellington Road 11 in Drayton. I actually just popped on because I'm the development officer in the Palmerston and District Hospital Foundation. And we hold a huge event once every 3 years at the PMD Arena Complex. So I have a vested interest in seeing how this grant proposal fleshes out. One of the items that I'd really like to bring to the forefront is the kitchen facilities. I've thought about this at great length, not only in relation to our gala event, but also the Kinsman Farm Show, the Community Christian School Bazaar, and there are certainly some community groups that rent the arena. The Drayton United Church Turkey Supper is served from that facility, and the kitchen facilities are used to the extreme utmost of their abilities. So I would not like to see the footprint of the kitchen decreased. I would like to see a rework of the kitchen. I think that it's not a terrifically efficient kitchen. It's not for the size of the building and where we hold the largest events, which is on the arena floor during off season from ice. I think that it would make a lot of sense seeing the utilization of that former concession booth area, which it is a concession booth area still, but it's definitely underutilized. Would love to see that reworked and potentially see the kitchen closer to the main ice pad. As far as, and I know I'm probably getting close to 2 minutes, personally, so that's my professional hat. My professional hat says, please don't make the kitchen smaller than it is. And if we're going to rework it, let's do it really well and consult with some caterers that use the facility. And my personal hat says, we don't need a pool. I've heard from so many municipalities that have pools that they are, not only do they not make profit, they're actually revenue suckers. So from my personal standpoint, I would not like to see that. But that is, again, that's my personal hat. Professional hat, I'd be happy to sit in on any discussions that talk about the rework of the facility. We use it to and above at the full extent. So would love to be part of a working group. Thank you.
Perfect, Dale. And you're right on your 2 minutes. You're good. Thank you very much for that information. And I know we did have a discussion at council about the kitchen. Marlene has been quite the vocal person when it comes to the kitchen size and making sure that the needs are met for the community. And I know that you've been in touch with Marlene and that's great. Who's next to speak? Did I see Corey Claus with a hand up at one point?
I just had a quick question. You mentioned the survey results. Could we see those? I just think that might be relevant to the people who are in attendance here as to what the community is saying. I know someone had just put in the chat box they were going to put it on their website, but I'm wondering if the people who are here now could see those, because I think that would kind of impact some trains of thought.
Okay. Thanks, Corey. I think that Ali Cripps just quickly put some results together today. Ali, can you share the quick results that you pulled together?
I can give a summary of the three ones that we have percentages for us. The ones with the longer answers, I'm not sure how I get into the chat on here. But sorry, I'm just opening it up. For question 1, do you or your family currently use the PMD arena facilities? 77% of answers said yes, 22 said no. And we had 153 answers to the survey. Question 2 is, according to the current design, how would your attendance to the PMD arena be affected? 42% of people said increase, 52% of people said stay the same, and around 6% said decrease. And then, would you be willing to fundraise towards this project? It was about a 50-50 answer of yes and no towards this. I can look at if I can figure out how to put the longer answers into the chat here.
The longer answers being what people would like to see in the facility.
Yeah, it is the answers to the question of, did you have any suggestions or comments on the above design, and any other comments on the project?
Right, you had a few short answers that you emailed today. Would you just like to mention those? And if you can't find a share, I'm just quickly mention some of those.
Just bring that document up 1 second. So for the, do you have any suggestions or comments? We did see a lot of people discussing a pool for indoor or outdoor. Some people had suggested an indoor playground be added. Some people said they really liked the multi-use space, and that allows for more community members to utilize the space. The walking track, many people liked. Many people on that side of town, it seemed like, really liked the playground on that side. There was people that brought up the snack bar was missing. Larger kitchen to host events was brought up. Suggestion of mini stick area. Some people said the second ice was beneficial for skating and hockey, so they could go at the same time. There was concern over the figure skating and ref change room sizes. They were saying there were some concerns about the figure skating space being far from the ice surface, some concern of losing the community center space, and some concern about what the use of the multi-purpose and boardrooms were for. For the, do you have any other comments? There was a few responses against the second ice pad, as it's only benefiting a small percentage of the municipality that currently use the ice. Some people asked if they could still see in the plans the outdoor rink space that we had this year again. Many people are in favor of a pool, as we said before. They said they're currently leaving the municipality at this point to use one, but there's a lot of others that were concerned about costs associated with the pool. There was some concerns of the parking spaces and with the larger building where the parking is going to be directed, as sometimes it's very full. There's concern that the municipality will still have to fund some of the project and in turn raise taxes. There was concern of increased operating costs and staffing and how that should be taken into consideration. People are excited for the opportunity to have more organized indoor sports with a multi-use space and bring more people that don't usually use the ice into the building. They said some people said without the pool or ice surface, it makes the building much more energy efficient, which this grant is really looking at. People would like to see the drawings brought back to the public before a final decision was made. People would like to know if the multi-use court could be transitioned to community hall for rentals. And some people would like to see if pool could be considered in the future, if there would be plans that they could see with that. And there were some concerns that the recent upgrades to the halls would be a waste, was the main gist.
Thank you, Ali. That gives a good overview of what we heard. Did you have a follow-up to this? Your question was to see or hear about this, Corey. So did you have a question or any thoughts, Corey?
No, I was just, as a starting point, curious as to what the survey results were. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's good that, thank you for mentioning that. And just so everyone knows, you know, when we looked at this at council, and we're bringing it forward now, some of the room names may change later on, like the multi-purpose room could possibly change to senior center. You know, that's the placeholders, the names right now, the figure skating club, that piece. We talked about making it larger. We've talked about splitting it, making it part figure skating, part minor hockey, because minor hockey right now has all their equipment underneath the bleachers. We talked about at council last time, taking that office space that's attached to the kitchen, moving that somewhere else and making that entire space a kitchen. So those are some of the ideas we talked about last time. In the initial drawings that we saw, there was no elevator. So there were, you know, we now have the elevator that's put in place to get to the second floor, the second story. There was talk at the beginning to ramp it, but I think an elevator is more efficient than having a ramp getting up to the second space. But those are all just options and thoughts and as we go forward here. Who's next? Could be a very short meeting if no one wants to speak. Liz? You're on mute, Liz. Again, please give your full name and your address for the clerk, please.
Liz Zamas, 1656 Floridale Road, Elmira, having property, 3 pieces of property in Mapleton still, so I'm still a taxpayer. Just wanting to make sure that due diligence is showing in terms of the costing around a pool. I know in theory, everybody would like to have a pool. We're in Woolwich, and I would encourage council and staff to dialogue with the Woolwich Center. There's an excellent staff, an excellent facility here, but from a taxpayer standpoint, with a population more than double of Mapleton, there's significant ongoing deficit issues with the pool. Also, in terms of the facilities, the exercise rooms or whatever, I would also ask that you look into that and to see how much the Township of Woolwich makes on that particular endeavor. I think it is much better operated outside under a private enterprise versus public taxpayer. So those are 2 things I think to consider. As well, Listwell did some analysis, and I know everybody in Listwell wanted a pool, but they did not choose to go that route. So you can build a pool. It's the ongoing upkeep and maintenance and staffing costs that are a real concern. I wonder, the engineers, when they looked at the current PMD arena, which was built many years ago, I have not seen the report. So I just wonder, have they done some analysis from an energy climate change standpoint, how you could reduce the operating deficit that PMD arena already incurs? So a question in that regard.
Your worship.
Yes, Mr. Barron.
So great point, Liz. I appreciate that. Yes, we have looked at the financials, and we have a very good idea what a pool costs and a second ice pad. Part of the grant is that we have to do a current energy audit, and in order for us to even go to the next step, we have to identify 25% in energy savings, or else we don't even get past go. So that is absolutely part of the it's a big part of the project. So that's all the things we have to do once council decides what direction we're taking.
Thank you. Mr. Cudlip, would you just like to provide some information on the energy savings that you have incorporated as the engineer that would get us to that point?
Certainly, Your Worship. So first of all, we haven't done a very deep dive on the full spate of engineering solutions that would be employed to realize some major savings in terms of sustainable design criteria and energy efficiencies. Clearly, the building as an older structure, an older facility with upgrades would realize those benefits in terms of energy heat recovery systems that are regularly employed now. All of the the current heating in the building, all of the heating systems would be modified and replaced with new state-of-the-art equipment. In the proposed new areas, all the HVAC controls, all the HVAC equipment would also be geared toward high energy efficiencies in order to meet the 25% or better of the National Energy Code in terms of operational efficiencies. So without having done a deep dive on the existing systems, I can tell you that part of the program to renovate and retrofit the building would be a full review and likely replacement of probably just about every single major energy driver in the building right now. And that includes not just HVAC, but that goes to things such as low water use, plumbing facilities, LED lighting, building automation systems that control all of the heating and cooling systems, motion control devices for all the lighting so that it doesn't stay on, it's only on demand. Things like that and so forth would be incorporated as part of the eventual design program.
Thank you, Mr. Cudlip.
You're welcome.
Who would like to speak next? Anyone?
Hi there, it's Louise Ellis. I had my hand up.
Okay, so Louise, I did see it. Go ahead. Louise Ellis and the
Okay.
address.
Thanks very much. So Louise Ellis, 25 Smith Drive in Drayton. Just to build on, I think lots of great comments here. Thanks for the forum to be able to say something. Just wondering if there's been so many fantastic large scale projects that our service clubs, hats off to all of them, have really been key partners, and I would say key drivers in regards to really some successful projects. And just wondering if they've been looped in, and to see if there's some sort of very, very long-term commitment that can be seen for this kind of endeavor. The second comment I would make is in regards to the pool. Have we looked at any opportunity for like an outdoor pool to be integrated into this rework of the current facility? What I hear comments on are a lot of in regards to indoor pools, and I'm just thinking even for an outdoor pool, every little town I seem to drive through has one except us. And then in regards to the second rink, really thinking perhaps really need to see the numbers behind the hockey enrollment, the skating enrollment, and we've had some, historically some great collaborative work done through the hockey associations and the skating associations, I understand, at arm's length in regards to, making sure that we're using the facilities that are in neighboring small towns as well, and rather than thinking we need to go bigger and better here and have 2 pads and then struggle to maintain them.
Thank you very much, Louise. Manny, you want to talk to the outdoor pool that she spoke about? You looked at numbers?
Not necessarily outdoors. We did look at indoor pool. So indoor for just preliminary numbers, given the timelines that we're faced with, is about $5 million. So you can imagine an outdoor pool would be, my best guesstimate would be at about a couple $1 million, maybe $1.5 to $2 million.
But the cost of the maintenance would be similar, or is it?
Well, the per day cost is for a pool, the per day maintenance cost after revenue and expenses is about $1,000 a day. So obviously, being an outdoor pool, we wouldn't be enjoying the water for the winter months. So obviously, the expenses, the operational expenses, would be considerably less. But a pool, put it anywhere you'd like, is about $1,000 a day in operating costs.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Joe Heaton.
Hi, everybody. Again, thanks for this. So I had the pleasure, I got to sit in last Tuesday when you guys discussed some of this stuff, partly because the president of minor hockey, he brought it to my attention and he showed me the plans and stuff, which I thought looked awesome. And he had mentioned too about the possibility of the second ice pad. So I was just kind of interested. So I just wanted to talk because I know Louise just mentioned about enrollment and stuff in hockey. So when the last meeting that we had, it was sort of, I wouldn't say that the second ice pad was put aside, but it wasn't talked about a whole lot. So I took the time to kind of pull minor hockey. I had Mike email everybody. I got some feedback about, possibly increasing fees if that meant bringing a second pad. But I reached out to a couple other organizations around. So Minto, they have about 215 people enroll. Last year, Drayton Minor Hockey had 175, so a little bit less. But then I also checked with Reach Forth Hockey, which is also fairly big in Drayton here. They had 130 kids as well. So that puts our number over 300, which would be more than what Minto has. Minto runs out of 2 facilities, both Harrison and Palmerston. And when you look at their ice time, they get, for every age group, they get 3 1-hour sessions at least a week. The older kids get a little bit longer. Obviously with their games and stuff being a little bit longer, they maybe get an hour and a half. If you talk to anybody in Drayton Minor Hockey, or maybe even with Sandy, like I know for our groups, we're lucky if you get 2 ice times a week. Some of those are shared with other teams. Some of them are overlapped. Sometimes you get a 40-minute practice with no flood beforehand. So I would say certainly there is a need for more ice in town. I don't know if that means it's structured different. Again, I think Sandy was online here, so she could maybe talk about what's available. Like I know before school, there's some ice time available, and maybe late evenings, like 10:30 or 11 o'clock. Aside from that, it's booked during your prime time, whether it's 4 o'clock till 10:30, 11 night, with some of the rec leagues and stuff. And then weekends as well, it's pretty well booked. So the problem with me is I'm pro for both. I want to see the courts. I'm a health and fitness guy. I want to see that. And I would like to see the ice pad. I know that that's not feasible. So I guess my question is, in terms of supply and demand, what's on demand at this point? Have we created that demand for the extra gym? Do we use other facilities in town? Are they busting at the seams? So I know somewhere like the Christian school, they rent their gym out. So I reached out to have a chat with them to see how booked they are. They have 1 night a week that they would rent it for volleyball. Aside from that, there's rental times that are wide open. So again, that obviously it can't be used during the day like the gym if it was to be reconstructed where the rec center is now. But in terms of evening and stuff, I think programming could be available there. In terms of a second pad, even if the second pad didn't happen, but with the pad that we have now, is there opportunity when the ice isn't in to start running some programming and stuff? You could run basketball, volleyball, a lot of that stuff through there as well. So just some thoughts that I had.
Thanks, Joe. Can you just provide your address for the clerk, please?
Sorry, yes, Joe Heenan, live at 169 River Run Road in Drayton.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate your feedback and information on the hockey numbers. Very important to have that information. Of course, we'd also know that arenas are somewhat costly to run. Second ice pad, a little bit less than the first one because you already have some of the infrastructure in place. But it's certainly something that council will be discussing when it comes to the overall cost of these, whatever facility we go with, because it has to make sense for our tax base as well in the future. Jody?
Hi there. My name is Jody Caldwell. My address is 34 Bedell Drive in Drayton. So I guess I'm coming at it from a few perspectives. Certainly I appreciate Joe's information and I agree. I think that's important to think of what other spaces we have in Drayton are already using. I agree. I think as a hockey family, certainly people want to see the other ice pad. I also appreciate the comment about looking at other towns, and that kind of came up previously, like, could we rent ice in Arthur? Could we do other things if we needed a second ice pad? So I think the hard part too is that we see a lot of times these bigger centers that have two ice pads running are ranked at a higher level than what we are. So I think part of what goes on in Drayton Minor Hockey too, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, is that as kids age and they go to a different center, our numbers are significantly down in those older ages. And so would that be feasible that we could maintain that second ice pad? From the perspective of my previous life, I actually used to work at the indoor Hanover pool, and I was the head guard at the Arthur pool back in the day when they rebuilt it. So I do agree that the carrying costs of a pool are a lot. And the piece to think about also is, even though if you have an outdoor pool, there's still significant maintenance on maintaining that pool over the winter, opening it up every year and those sorts of things. And as a taxpayer, I agree that's a significant investment and would want to make sure that's the case. My third perspective is as a healthcare provider in this town, and that really, you know, increasing fitness and health for all, like Joe said, like I'm really torn here, is what would really be the most beneficial for the community as a whole to get people who maybe aren't involved in hockey out and active in ways that they might feel uncomfortable, feel more comfortable. I wonder, you know, in the meantime of planning, like Joe suggested, is there ways that we can trial some things and get people active and see those needs and offer things? So the last piece is, as sort of a homeowner who lives on that side of town, I made the comment about there being a park over there in Drayton Ridge. There is no green space allotted for a park on this side of town, and there's a lot of kids in this neighborhood. You have to ride down a hill and back up a hill to get home over a bridge that is got big trucks flying by. And I think the piece is that I made the comment about whatever capacity the arena changes, it is going to increase traffic. And so making sure that that's accounted for in the safety, because people coming up that hill and down that hill, it is definitely a safety issue. So those are sort of my thoughts.
Thanks, Jody. Really good perspective, and thanks for the information when it comes to the pools. Very, very insightful that you used to work there and you have knowledge of that. And I know that when it comes to the indoor floor space, you know, it could be used for multiple things. You know, seniors, whether pickleball or people with pickleball, floor hockey, volleyball, basketball, you name any kind of floor sport, it can be used for that. So that's one of the reasons council was looking at that idea. So thank you for that information. Mr. Cullip, can you show the plan on the screen for a minute, please, so people maybe refresh themselves? And
give me 2 secs. I will. There you go. Hopefully that pops up.
sure, we got the. Yeah, can we go to the other page which shows? Thank you. So of course, if like I've said before, if you have a question or comment, then please raise your hand so we know that you wish to speak. Because I can't see everybody. If Mr. Clerk, if you see anybody with a raised hand, please let me know. If we can't see it and you want to speak and we can't see you, please just speak up. But there's the overall plan. If you can see that the figure skating piece is there, Councillor Otten's brought up of moving that piece over further to where the entrance is, making it a bigger location. So that space will probably be moved over. The accessible playground that's there, we talked about its location, whether it needs to be there or needs to be another location, maybe out front. We've talked about that as well. Having it at that location is maybe not the best spot for safety of children, so we thought about bringing it to the front. When we were talking about this, the overall, if you go back to the first one again, the other photo, the new asphalt to be there, and you see the PV charging stations, that's for all the electric vehicles. We do have a number of people with electric vehicles in the area. And this new roof, this is the new 2-story area. This area here would be the new 2-story area. This is the existing roof that's there currently, but so this building, where the new roof is, that would be the one that's replaced and made into the 2 stories. And Mr. Cudlip, do you want to talk about the new entranceway? Because that's a really interesting feature.
Okay, thanks, Your Worship. So the plan at this high level was to, let me go back to the floor plan for just a minute, just to give you a sense. The idea was to sort of amalgamate and sort of rationalize, is the word I would use, the whole entrance sequence into the building. So starting from the drop off, which you could see on this drawing, which would allow for, may not look it right now. And of course, we do a little more detailed design work to make sure, you get a full bus turning radius within this area. You also need to do that for the fire service as well, because it's part of the fire route. Starting with the major drop off here, the idea being you'd provide a very large covered canopy, which would allow people to disembark from vehicles pretty much undercover, and then enter the facility with a new, as we've referred to this as sort of a glass box. The idea that it provides some animation and some interest to the streetscape as well, because it's glazed. And glass these days, by the way, is extremely high efficient. Part of a sustainable design approach here would be using triple glazing, which provides basically an increased R value. So don't let the idea of glass dissuade you from doing anything sustainable. You can do quite a bit with it, actually. But the idea makes it into a very sort of open, transparent entrance feature, which then provides access to both directly into the arena space and then to the rest of the building, and to, of course, the new addition. This entrance court, or I call it forecourt inside, could be used as a staging area for other events. For instance, any large public gatherings you're having in the facility, you could use this as a space for vendor kiosks, or for an entry feature or of any kind. Fairly large crush space, which is obviously, as everyone knows, in large assembly areas, really important to have that feature. So the idea being that this glass box then becomes a new sort of entry welcoming feature to the building, providing access. We moved the office that sits here currently with a new set of doors. We probably open these walls up a little bit to provide a little more transparency. This isn't exactly right. The vestibule would disappear, because in fact, this entrance becomes a new sort of vestibule. We'd provide an airlock here, which isn't shown in this level, but we'll get to that as part of the detailed design. But these are just the big moves and the big block plan ideas that we're demonstrating with this plan. So that's the notion behind this new entry feature, that it enlivens and rationalizes the entry, amalgamates it into one very focused and intuitively wayfinding kind of approach too. So this is where you come. This is the front door of the building intuitively when you arrive here, especially if you're, some people may be coming here for the first time. So that's specifically about the entrance, Your Worship.
Thank you, Lawrence. Very well done. And just so I know, one of the comments that came through was about the referee rooms and the change rooms 1 and 2. Like I said, names, placeholders, they could be just 1, 2, 3, 4. They could be utilized by the figure skaters, the hockey players, the female hockey players. They could also be utilized by people on the multi-court. So they might just be 1, 2, 3, 4 in that area.
Right.
Jennifer is up next with questions or comments.
Hi, my name's Jen Richardson. I live at 93 Andrews Drive in Drayton. I have a few comments. First of all, I think that the ideas, some of them are wonderful. Some of them I think are a work in progress. And I think given what seems to be like very limited time to make very big decisions, I think that people are quite concerned with the cost of operating this new facility. What is it going to cost us as taxpayers, not only to build it, but also to run it? And what are the income streams that would come from that to help justify the spend? So that's sort of the first part of, I guess it's a question, is how much information do we have on what this is going to cost, not only to build, but to also run and maintain? My second thought would be, because some of the ideas are great, like the multi-purpose rooms and the multi-purpose courts, is there not a way to implement those into facilities that we already have, such as the Moorfield Community Hall or the Elma Community Center, because we do have other community centers in Mapleton that are probably underutilized, that could probably function in a very similar way.
Thanks, Jen. It's very good questions you had there. And Manny, do you want to tackle some of those questions?
Yeah, I can give it a shot. So Jennifer, thank you for your question. In our 10-year capital plan for the PMD arena, we have about 2.75 million already allocated and spoken for to projects that will happen. So such things as the new skate floor, refrigeration system, even a new entrance is scheduled in 2027. So the goal of this grant was to take that as our 20%, which we're already going to spend, and essentially get $8 million of money. It's a partnership. We have to put money in. So seeing that we're already putting the money in, I thought it was a great way to get the funding so that we can improve the facility. As far as revenue, I mean, we can. The one idea that was thrown out is we can move the senior center there, make more room for the doctors at the current building. There's recreation that's taking place right now. We want to expand those. That's cost recovery, so it doesn't cost the ratepayers any money. So the footprint really only increases by about 30%. The cost would be within the $8 million, so it wouldn't cost the ratepayer any money. And the revenue would come from the programming that we've done. If the hall's not being used, it's basically like today, if the halls are not being used, we're not getting any revenue. So there wouldn't be, what Lawrence just presented now, there wouldn't be any impact essentially to the ratepayers.
Thank you, Manny. And I think, Jen, you were probably concerned about the overall funding each and every year to pay for the things like heat and hydro and staffing of that. If I'm not correct, is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I understand we do already have arena staff, and probably they could handle the additional space. But now Manny, are you proposing that potentially we would be moving doctors to this facility to operate out of?
No, that's not what Manny was talking about.
That's not what I was saying. The doctors
go ahead, Manny.
Sorry, the doctors are running out of space. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to facilitate some space for the doctors in the current building that they're in. And by moving the senior center to this space, there's an opportunity for programming. There's an opportunity to meet with specialists. So no, not at all the doctors would be moving. It would be more so the senior center, if that's the route we decide to take.
Yeah, so right now the Senior Center of Excellence is housed in the lower level of the medical building. They can move over here potentially and free up some space for the doctor's office, is what we're getting at. Okay. So I understand your question well, Jen, about the other centers, but with this kind of funding, you're kind of, you can do smaller projects and hopefully you will get funding for each of them, or you can do a larger project, which would potentially give you the better bang, because it's really unrealistic to think that the federal government's going to look at 3 projects and give you all 3 of them, but they're more willing to look at one, and that's why we decided to go with one project.
Makes sense. It just, to be honest, it really seems like it's from my perspective, it seems very rushed. Even though we could potentially be receiving $8 million free, we're still spending $2 million. And like Manny said, even though that's in the long-term plan, it's not in the sort of right now plan.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with a lot of this funding that comes from the federal or provincial government, it's very, you get a short window to reply to it. This funding came out near the end of April, middle of April. For July 6th, it has to be in place. So totally understand. And we know that we've seen other funding that came through that we weren't able to provide or get anything ready, shovel ready, as they call it. So we know that we have to do our planning in the future to have some projects. And as we look at this overall plan we have now, and if we don't go with the second ice pad, if we don't go with a pool, we now know that the community wants those things. So we can actually, get shovel ready ideas so that if more funding comes up in the future, we would have that plan ready to go. So that's what we're looking at. Rob, you had a question or thoughts?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Councillor Martin put out a survey, and my question was the cost, and he said the government will, if the building comes in under $10 million, they will give us 80%. Have you got a cost of what this is going to cost us? Because he also said if it's over $10 million, they'll only give you 60%. So if this building or facility runs to $10 million, $1, we're only going to get $6 million. So then we got to come up with 4 million on this. I don't disagree with what you're doing. I'm very concerned about the cost and what it's going to cost us taxpayers. And my next statement is for new builds, there was $430 million for new builds. Did you look at, does a new sewer plant fall under that? Because that's maybe what you should have been looking at to build our infrastructure so that our town can grow even more.
Thanks, Rob. And just for the clerk, again, your full name and your address before we go ahead.
It's Rob Giles. I live at 51 Edward.
Thank you, Rob. So as for the sewer plant, there's not currently funding. This funding doesn't go to that. So we couldn't possibly use this funding for the water tower or the sewer plant, even though we'd love to do that. This funding doesn't speak to that. And
Okay.
there's currently no funding available that we're aware of for the water tower or the wastewater system. And we actually have a meeting with Mr. Randy Pettipies, MVP, that's online now, and John Nader, and we're going to speak about funding and what can we do this week. So Manny and I have a meeting with them this week to talk about that. With the building costs, Mr. Cudlip, he told us at council last week that the plan you see in front of you is roughly around $9 million is what he estimates it to be. And as for the funding envelope, so the first 10 million gets you the 80%. Anything after that, so from 10 million plus one, as you would say, and after that, that would lower down. So for the first 10 million, you get that 80%. So you would get that that amount of money. It's anything over. So if it came in at $12 million, we'd still get that 8 million for the first 10 million. And then the second part would be the lower amount.
So you're guaranteed $8 million.
Well, we're not guaranteed anything unless they give it to us, but that's the idea. Yeah, that's what we're trying. That's what we're trying, Rob. That's what we're trying, Rob.
Yeah, and then if it goes over that, you get 60% of the over 10 million, is what you're telling me?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to keep it under the 10 million. So we get that 80%. Mr. Cudlip, did I cover that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have Heather Dean.
Hi, my name is Heather Plummer and I live on 71 Edward Street in Drayton. And I think that I'm one of those people that is in favor of a pool, but my standpoint always in our community is that anything that we do put in, if we're going to put in a pool, what accessibility features are going to be for our community that have accessibility needs and our seniors. If we're going to put in a rink, the same thing. Would we be able to have sledge hockey options so people can get in on sledges without having to go over big bumps? And then the accessible playground, what is being looked at, or is there any feedback that you need on in terms of making sure that the playground is accessible? So just, yeah, what is the accommodations that are being planned? And obviously if there's a second level that an elevator wouldn't be an option, it would just be this is what we have to do to make sure people can get to the second level.
Thank you, Heather. And yeah, part of the funding is actually around accessibility as well. So that's why we have to look at those options. Mr. Barron, do you have answers for Heather?
That's exactly right, Your Worship. Another point of the application is everything must be accessible and even if we're not applying for this fund, our township has until 2023, I believe it is. It's been extended to make all our properties accessible. But a big part of the scoring of this application is to make sure that everything is accessible. Another thing I wanted to mention is I think there's a big want and need for public feedback. So we reached out to the funding folks and asked that how much engineering needs to be done really, and they agreed that only preliminary engineering needs to be done for us to apply, which is great news because we're asking for feedback on the accessible playground, we're asking feedback on the hall. Those are all things that we absolutely must go for and need from the residents. So that's the good news. So let's say we are approved and we do decide to move forward. That would be a huge part of the process, is asking everybody for feedback on what they'd like to see, what kind of play equipment they'd like to see, what kind of lines would you like to see on the court to play certain games. So certainly the project only needs to be completed in 2026. So that the application is due in July 6th, but we have plenty of time to plan and engage the public and the residents for feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. And that goes to a question earlier about, our plan over a number of years is to do these fixes of the arena. But if we need to do this funding now, so your answer to that of when we don't have to have this in place for a few years anyway, but it is something we can work towards and take some of those projects that we have that's 2.5 million or just a little over 2.5 million of projects funneled into this one thing.
If I can speak to that, I think Jennifer, you made a good point with regards to it is a long-term plan. The beauty of this is most of those costs that we're talking about, in fact, line up with the 2026 deadline. So I mean, the big item, the new floor, the roof over the arena ice, the roof insulation. So the big ticket items that we would be spending are actually in line with 2026. So it's kind of perfect timing.
Thanks for that clarification. Anybody else? Ed?
Hello, Ed Cox, 115 Wellington Street North. I have a question. You talk about future and future development. Is there a phase plan to have that second rink or a pool on this floor plan that you have?
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Your Worship. We haven't been given direction. That's, I think our recommendation to council would be if we decide to not go with an arena or second ice pad, pardon me, and a pool, we would ask for permission to properly plan out what's needed, get the public feedback, and engage, for instance, SEMA to put a preliminary engineering plan together, so that when the time comes and if there is funding in the future, that we'd be ready, shovel ready, in fact, that we wouldn't have to rush through this. So yeah, if council's wishes are to move forward with that, we would absolutely move forward with the preliminary engineering of that second ice pad and pool so that we're ready.
Well, that's a good question, Ed, and thank you for bringing that up. And we know that the footprint of where the facility isn't that large, and we have to be very careful of what we're doing out there as well when it comes to parking spaces. If we take too much of a footprint, that's why we're looking at this. If we take too much of a footprint, then we're going to have some issues when it comes to people parking, unless we acquire some land elsewhere that's close by. But right behind it, of course, that's where the industrial park is. We really can't move backwards any. But the idea of a second rink would, of course, have to go to the back. It can't go really to the front. There's not enough space out there. But yeah, that was something that if we don't change our direction of where we're going right now with going with a second rink, then it's, as I said earlier, having the feedback from the public certainly gives us the information we need to start planning for future needs in our area. Did that answer your question? You have another one, Ed?
Yeah, I was just saying, based on this new structure, would there be that space still available for that rink? but I guess that was answered.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Ed. Angie?
Sorry, I was just trying to figure out how all this stuff works. I'm Angie Culp. I live at 98 Andrews Drive in Drayton. And I have two questions. My first question, if we could go back to the actual picture of the inside instead of the rooftop. So you guys can't see my mouse. So you have this multi-court here and then the elevated track around it. And Louise had asked, is the multi-court the same size as the recreation, the rec hall that we have now? Like if that's what that is? Like that's the same, it's going to be the same blueprint?
It's actually bigger.
Okay, so we'd be putting an addition on there, and then these two multi-purpose rooms would be addition as well?
Correct.
Okay, and these multi-purpose rooms, sorry, I know we're all supposed to be square meters, but I'm still square feet. So these two rooms combined would be over 6,000 square feet?
I anticipated the question and put the area right on the drawing. So we'd be looking at 300 square meters, which is approximately, I'm going to say rough, without my calculator handy, about 4,000 square feet.
For the entire space, not for each?
For the entire block, correct.
Okay, okay, yeah. I thought, okay. And so obviously you had input from council to put something that large there. So my question to council is, what was your thoughts on a multi-purpose, a 4,000 square foot multi-purpose room?
You're just talking the multi-purpose room now, Angie?
Yeah.
Okay, so the multi-purpose room could be used for a number of things, including the senior center. So the seniors right now don't have a space to do anything. They utilize the church, they utilize other spaces. So seniors, giving seniors a space that they can utilize, and that wall down the middle that can be separated. So this room could be used for the seniors, and it can be used for, say, it could be developed for kids doing their mini sticks. It could be rented out as a smaller room or a larger room.
Okay.
Or for any church groups or any groups that want to rent it out for doing a banquet or whatever. So that's why we had that space there. I know, knowing that we're taking away with the multi-court, we're taking away that facility that people utilize now.
Mm-hmm.
We would then have this other space here that a lot of people complained that they would have to rent the big hall.
Right.
And so they would like to rent a smaller space. So that's why we put in a smaller space and have it divided so it could be two smaller spaces to rent out.
Okay. And sorry, just to go back to the multi-court then, how much larger would you be looking at making that then as well? I didn't see your numbers aren't here.
Mr. Cudlip, that's a full-size basketball court, right?
Yeah, that would be a regulation basketball court. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact number.
Okay, but full regulation basketball court. Okay.
Yeah, full regulation with a perimeter buffer. So I'm going to say roughly, in this really high level, I believe the wall of the existing hall space is probably about where my hand is.
Okay.
So we'd effectively be removing that and adding this whole piece on, because you need the height. We need 7 meters clear and plus the upper running track. So yeah.
Okay. And then I do have one other question. It's more about like actual township question than structure question. So is the new recreation manager going to implement organized activities in the new spaces?
Mr. Barron?
100%. Yeah, so right now Amy has done a tremendous job at getting the recreation program off its feet. The goal for the recreation manager is to offer programming year round, and clearly this would be the perfect space for it. And we could offer during the weekends, we can offer during the holidays, March break, Christmas breaks. So absolutely, this would certainly fall into her purview.
Okay, and given the time crunch and whatnot and maybe you don't have to have this ready for your actual proposal, but have you figured out user fees? Like, have you guys looked into user fees or whatnot for those types of programs?
Through your worship, no. This isn't I guess the public meeting is about the building itself, not about recreation programming.
Yep.
So that would be kind of an addition and a bonus to the space. But no, we haven't focused on recreational programming for this space, pricing or otherwise, no.
Okay, yep, perfect. Thank you.
And just one other thing, Angie, just for those multi-purpose rooms, they would be utilized for the summer camp programs as well that we're launching into this year. One of the reasons that you know, we're just doing the one location this year, but we like to do multiple locations. And actually, Drayton really doesn't have a. If we build this, then we'll have a better location for that purpose, because we really don't have a space for the children's summer camp in case it rains and things like that in Drayton right now, with a playground and
Yep.
things
Okay.
around. Right?
Yep, that makes sense. Thanks.
Neil?
Thank you. And I wasn't going to say a whole lot, but I really enjoyed this presentation. I want to just say to council and staff and your engineers, what a great job you've done putting this together so quickly. And just hearing the conversation, I really wonder if we worry too much about what it costs to run this program. This whole facility, is it ever going to make a profit? And is council willing to say, well, if it doesn't make a profit, we fund it out of tax collection or other resources? It's an important piece for our community just to build. We're talking about adding all these homes to Drayton, and we don't have, even just for minor hockey, which I've been part of or seen, we don't have the space for our kids to play hockey. Jody made a great comment about communities that have dual ice pads can have a higher level of hockey. We have a lot of great kids that leave Mapleton to go play hockey other places because there isn't competitive hockey here for them. And I think we lose a lot of great people, and then they don't come back to our community. This facility you're proposing is going to keep people in Mapleton, and I'm just really impressed. And I all the best, and I hope things go well for you with the grant applications. But well done, and I think it can only improve Mapleton in the whole.
Thanks, Neil, for those positive comments, and I agree with you 100%. This court, this multiplex that we're looking at here is certainly going to be something that is going to be a wonderful for the community and for those people moving into the community. And yeah, it might be a few years away before we get our more capacity for more homes, but we do know we have builders that want to build in here. And once we open those gates, and we're going to have a lot more people moving in, which is, you know, it'll be just in time as we're looking at, you know, our water, wastewater, and getting that expanded, that this will be put online as well, and just in time built for all those people moving into the community. So thank you for those comments. Anybody else wishing to speak? Just use your raise hand function on your. Ed, did you have something else to say? Your hand's still up.
Sorry about that. I will take it down.
Jennifer?
I just had one more quick question. Since the feedback on Facebook and the survey seemed to overwhelmingly be in support of a pool, is that actually even being considered at this point? I mean, it's one of those things where you ask for people's feedback and you want to do what the people want, that as an elected official, but is that actually going to be even considered at this point?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And everything is still out there. We went this direction, and we saw that a lot of people wanted the pool. And when we look at the pool, then we have to look at, okay, what's it going to cost to run that? We know that running this facility is not going to be an extra burden onto the tax dollars to run it. And as pointed out earlier, most of these facilities don't. Well, they don't make money, and tax dollars support them. So if we were to do a pool right now, if we were doing a second rink, we'd have to really incorporate that into, council really has to really consider that when it comes to how much money are we willing to put onto the tax base to operate a pool or a second ice pad at this time. And that's one of the considerations that we have to touch on as we move forward.
But to Neil's point, is council prepared to say, if that's what the community wants and that's what's going to bring people to Drayton and that's what's going to help people stay in Drayton, is the council willing to not look at what it's going to cost to operate that pool? Because on one hand, you're using the money to not be a reason, or the money to be a reason to not put it in. And in the same breath, we're also, saying like, hey, we might have to do something that's not going to make money in order to just appease the people.
So I guess the real question that council's going to have to deal with, Jennifer, is if a pool was to add a 5% onto your tax base, would the majority of the residents be willing to pay that 5% extra onto your tax base now? And that's where the real question comes in. And I don't know if it's exactly 5%, but we do know that it's a high number. So that's what we have to struggle with. And that's what council has to discuss and come up with an answer. Dale?
I actually would just really like to chat a quick moment about the responses to the survey and on Facebook, of course, because I know I read those same comments that were very, very pro pool. Very, very few people actually would understand the cost to run a pool. I took a couple of moments this week when I was in the midst of an event plan and chatted with a municipal employee in Minto who operates the pools there. They're challenging. They're challenging from maintenance standpoint. They're challenging from revenue standpoint. I'm not saying that we should never have a pool, but I'm saying for the size of our community, it's a really huge ask. And we had a very short window of time to offer feedback. I don't think we can take a 2-week window of time and a Facebook post as an indicator on whether or not our community really fully supports the cost that a pool would entail. So I know myself, I've heard a lot of anecdotal conversations that are like, no, I know what Fergus pays for their pool. I know what Elmira pays for their pool. We're really, really fortunate in our area that we can drive 20 minutes to some really stellar facilities. Yes, they're out of our municipality. Yes, sometimes we're charged a little bit more for using them. But I think in the long run, we're actually saving a lot of money for our families here in Mapleton in not having that type of facility. That's my personal opinion. I think if we're going to talk about a pool at all, we have to do the work to do a usage study. We have to do the work to do a financial study. And I think I think people would be a bit surprised by how much of a tax burden they would be. So I would just caution that 2 weeks of feedback isn't really indicative of the full community's support or not support of an idea.
Thank you, Dale. Jody?
Yeah, I was going to say, I totally agree with Dale. I think the other big component here is a pool is a whole other level of liability, and it comes with liability insurance, and that's a different cost as well. And I think just from listening to this, even learning that I didn't understand from the information that was presented that the first 10 million was at 80%, and then after that, like, I think what really needs to be provided to the community for them to make an educated decision would sort of be a cost breakdown of the different options, right? I think it's a tall ask to sort of say to people, well, what would you like? But like you said, and like Dale said, like if they're not willing to pay an additional 5%, but they're saying, well, I have to pay an out of town usage fee for swimming lessons in Fergus, that's probably cheaper than 5%, right? So you have to kind of, I feel like we really need more of a financial breakdown to make an educated decision here.
Thank you, Jody. And I did have a comment from someone that suggested that maybe we just, those people have to take their children out of town. We just pay for the swimming lessons because it'd probably be less money than operating it ourselves, is what this person said. So we don't have the total amount. We know that adding a pool building, roughly $5 million. And then as Mr. Barron had pointed out, it was $1,000 a day to operate it. And you're not going to get those back from user fees. Corey?
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this meeting and this input from the community. And I wanted to kind of piggyback on I think it was Jody who was just speaking and Dale about the cost of the swimming pool. And I wonder to what extent do those concerns also transfer to a second ice pad? And I think, you know, for an ice pad, for example, you know, how many people, you know, percentage wise of the community use the ice pad that exists there. Now, we as a family we do hockey and figure skating and all that, but I'm not sure it would benefit so many families. So then, you know, you're looking at increasing a tax base, and maybe not as much as a pool, but to whom is it actually going to benefit? Who are the users of that? So I think that's something to really think about with the second ice pad too, from a cost perspective. And is everyone's tax is going to go up X percent, but you know, a very small number of people use the surface. And would the user fees for hockey and figure skating go up to cover that? And at what point would that impact a family's ability to enroll their children in those activities? So I think while perhaps the cost for a second ice pad may not be as great as a pool, I think that there would be, you know, overall fewer users of it to kind of spread over that. I mean, I think all of these plans would be great. It would be great to have a second ice pad and a pool and this multi-court. Would not, it would, you know, it would be beautiful. But I think there's a lot of things to consider for anything, you know, extravagant as to who would use it, who would pay for it, and how community inclusive is a second ice pad for all people. So anyway, thanks so much for this opportunity and letting us all, you know, share our ideas. But thanks.
Thank you, Corey. And certainly as council and as members of the community, if we had unlimited dollars, we'd put in the ice pad, we'd put in the pool, we'd put in this multi-court, we'd have everything, but we know we don't have unlimited dollars. And Mr. Barron, you just want to touch, you operated a pool at your previous employment, correct?
Yep. Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. So our job as staff is to present all the information, of course, and there's obviously a lot of discussion about pools and second ice pads. So just very preliminary numbers. Second ice pad is about $10 million if we want to do it properly. And the indoor pool, like we mentioned, is about $5 million. You know, should I go into financing details, Your Worship?
Yeah,
Or,
that would be good.
Okay. So just today, because I you know, we figured this would come up. We would, if we borrowed, because we don't have the money, we haven't planned for it. If we debentured $10 million for an ice pad, the yearly debt payment would be $630,000. The tax impact to that yearly debt payment is 13.4% per year of taxes. The pool, same thing, 30-year debenture at 3.07%. The yearly debt payment is $320,000 or 6.81%. So if we did both, the impact would be just over 20%, and that does not include operating costs. So for operating costs, you can imagine for the arena, it's an extra 100,000. That's very conservative, and the pool conservatively would be another 300,000 per year in operating. So given the fact that 1% is $47,000, we're looking at a combined impact of just over 6% on top of the capital.
Thank you, Mr. Barron, for providing that information. And that's what information that council uses to help determine what direction we're going to go. And obviously, we've been doing well with our taxes over the last number of years. We've kept it low. This year, council came through with a lower rate, so that per $100,000 of home value, you're going to be paying for the main Mapleton Township tax side of things anyway, $10 less. And if we were to add in the pool and the ice pad, then that is going to be a huge jump for our municipality, that's for sure. Thank you for providing that information. Anybody else wishing to speak right now? And just so you know that this is something that, you know, yeah, we're going to apply for the money using whatever we end up doing, whether it be this, what you see in front of you, or something else. we'll apply for that money, but we'll definitely have the Parks and Rec Committee as well as the community involved in the overall process. And we've this is so quick, we didn't have a chance to take it to the Parks and Rec Committee that represents the citizens here as well as does council. So that will be coming forward as with once we get the funding and having to get into the nitty gritty. Anybody further wishing to speak? Not seeing anybody. Corey again?
Hi, just a quick question. I noticed that when I logged on, it said that this is being recorded. Will this recording be available? I feel like there's been a lot of information and I wonder if, other people who weren't able to attend, or even maybe some of us wouldn't mind having the opportunity to review it. So how quickly are these, or will this be made available to the public? I'm not familiar with that process, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So just like our council meetings, they go onto the Mapleton YouTube channel and you could find it there, and it's usually up within 1 or 2 days. So people will be able to find it on the YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Louise?
Yeah, it's just a quick question. Can you sort of summarize perhaps just the next 3 actions for council then? Like what will happen next here? Because you're facing quite a tight timeline. Like
Yeah, and I'll actually, I can do that now. So where do we go from here? And that's, we have the input from the community. We have the staff input, and we know what the future needs are with the staff and the programming needs. We have the financial analysis to go over still in regards to the construction costs, as well as ongoing yearly maintenance and operational costs, and how all this fits into the green and inclusive community buildings program funding envelope. We have to make sure it all fits in that funding envelope. So council will discuss this opportunity and make a final decision on a direction, probably it would have to be at our next meeting, which is June 15th, I believe. We expect that SEMA is going to provide council with a 3D rendering. If this is, this is the direction we're going to go, we're going to 3D rendering of it for our plan of our meeting. And of course, if that's what we end up having to see 3D rendering, it'll be on the YouTube channel again after a council meeting, so you can see it then, or you can tune into the meeting itself and hear more from the SEMA representatives. And we know we can't do everything. We wish we could do everything. We know we can't do everything, but we now have in our hands an idea of what the community wants for the future, which is very important also to have as council members, to know what people want, and then we can start planning for those things. So if we don't go with a pool, if we don't go with a second ice pad now, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the future. We'll plan that out, and we'll look for opportunities that will bring us funding for that. And staff and SEMA, they're going to continue working together, and documentation has to be put together. Like, we are in a short time frame. It's got to be in before July 6th. There's a lot of paperwork needing to be done, a lot of documentation, and they're going to be working on that. Even now they're working on that, even though we don't have the final plan, but they're working on the information that we have. So hopefully that answers your question.
great, thanks very much.
Okay, Lawrence, is anybody else wishing to speak at this time? Lawrence, if you can stop showing your screen, please, that'd be great. So you can see everybody. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, I just want to thank everyone for your input. It's been very valuable and very informational. Just open it up for council members to speak as well, and if they have something they want to add to it. This public meeting, tonight, the information we have for this public meeting, the information we received from the members on Facebook, or for doing the survey, or the phone calls and emails, we really appreciate your thoughts, because it really helps us to make the decisions for the community. we're not guaranteed to get this funding. We're going to put ourselves out there to receive this funding, but we're not guaranteed to get it. But we do hope we will get it because we know that we do have money that we're going to be spending on the arena anyway. And this will just be able to add on. And just so you know, when we're talking about, you know, when Mr. Barron talked about the upgrades we're doing in the arena, we're also looking at fixing the seating in the arena to make it better and comfortable for people to sit in. We're looking at, you know, the heating, making it more energy efficient and maybe a little bit warmer for people. So we are looking at those items as well in this whole project envelope. So thank you very much. And members of council, you have Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to thank everyone for their feedback either tonight or through the emails or the survey. I just want to add there's one important distinction between a rebuild and a new build, particularly when it would come to a second ice pad, that it can be considered a new build if it was an expansion or addition of more than 30% of the floor space, which has impacts to the funding amounts available as well. So it would come out of the smaller pool of money, but also the percent, instead of 80% up to that $10 million, it falls to 60%. So it has a dramatic impact on the township's share if it is classified as a new build being more than that 30%. So I just wanted to get that out there as well. When people are talking about a twin ice pad, it does have a big impact on that finance number.
Thank you, Councilor Douglas. Very important fact. Thank you for bringing it up. Councilor Ottens?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to say thank you also for all the feedback, both in person, on social media, through the survey, and that it's been very, very informative. I find the most difficult part of the job as a council trying to envision the needs of our residents, not just in the short term, but in the long term. And we know how things can turn on a dime, and trying to be all things to all people, which is never possible. But I love the enthusiasm here. I love the excitement that people have when they see this plan and just something new and something different. And I will continue to advocate for the kitchen, and the outdoor rink, I think, is an important part. And I think parking is something that we've kind of skated over a little bit, but I think that's something we really need to address too as we fine tune this plan. And I do think I agree with the people who said that a pool might not be in the cards right now, but I think it's important to include it in the long-term planning of this facility so that it can be added, as has been said, when future grant opportunities present themselves, so that we have something ready to go, because this thing came up fast and furious, and we're going to do our best as council, I think, to try and meet the needs of the community within the window we have.
Thank you, Councilor Ottens. Councilor Craven?
Yeah, I want to thank Lawrence from SEMA, Manning, for all the work they've done toward this, and any other staff that's worked on this. I would like to see an ice pad. I'd like to see a swimming pool, but I just don't think that either one are affordable at this time. I think we should certainly look at them down the road, because with the development that's going to happen in Mapleton in the next 5-10 years, we may need these facilities, and we may have to look at having them then. Maybe it'd be cheaper to plan now, put the money away now for them, and put them in, use them whenever we need them. And I just hope that we can go ahead with this project. I'm very excited. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about, we're going to use the tax money from the people in the west end of the municipality, and the east end. Are people from Malma and Moorfield going to attend the arena? Are they going to participate in any of the activities going on there, or are we just going to take their money? I'm a little concerned about the number of people that are going to be able to use this that aren't using the arena now.
Thank you, Councilor Craven. Councilor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've really enjoyed this, from Facebook to this meeting. Dale, you said, that, a Facebook thread doth not a decision make or something, right? And you're absolutely right. But, Facebook threads that, get over 100 comments, more than what a $20 million budget deliberation gets, are still valuable, right? And I certainly did my best to try and read through, and then people showing up to a Zoom meeting tonight to say their piece is fantastic. It's you know, I think it clearly shows, like, you know, that others on council have already been saying that, you know, there's clearly interest in programming and a service level coming out of the PMD. So I think it's something we have to look at regardless of what happens with this particular grant application. You know, I think it was, you know, Ed Cup that was talking about, you know, more of a master plan, right? And creating plans moving forward for future development and growth. And I think, you know, the sheer, you know, the public interest in this, you know, I think warrants that, right? So I really think we need to invest some time and energy into, you know, creating a plan for this facility moving forward, regardless of what happens with this grant application. So thank you, you know, Mr. Mayor, for facilitating this, and Mr. Cudlip and the folks at SEMA for spinning this around. You know, in a couple of weeks, it'd be amazing to see what they could do with a month. So this has been a good exercise. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. And you actually did bring up a good point, and that's the Parks and Rec Master Plan that we received. I think it was last year we received it. I can't remember, last year before. And interesting, in that Parks and Rec Master Plan, there was Mr. Barron, I believe you said there's no mention of a pool in that whole plan. Is that correct?
Correct. No mention of a pool or second ice pad.
So, you know, when you're talking about master plans and plans of moving forward, and this is when you talk about Council Martin and moving on, or I can't remember which one you said, moving on a dime. You know, here we have a Parks and Rec Master Plan that is kind of showing us a roadmap to what we want, or what we're direction in the community. And now this comes up, and which is, you know, one of the reasons we built it, because part of it's in the master plan, but you know, then all these people wanting pools in the community, which wasn't in our master plan. So it just goes to show you how quickly that plan can change. And I'm glad we had this conversation tonight. Mr. Petterpiece, did you want to, you've been here and you're hearing all the, this whole time, sir. Did you want to make any comments?
Yeah, well, good luck to you. I went through this a number of years ago in Moncton. I think we built the Moncton Arena back in, I think it was open in 89 or 90. I just forget now. And we went through this same, what you're going through now. There was monies available. There was planning to do whatever. One thing that what I see with your council, and certainly with the people that commented tonight, was there is a lot of enthusiasm for this project. Unfortunately, some of these plans, and we had one plan a little while ago that, or a grant application a little while ago, it came towards the end of the year of our fiscal year, so they put one out, and you only had a very short order time to get it in. And it's too bad that this happens that way, because you don't want to overlook anything because of the shortness of time of putting an application in. But certainly, I know this is federal money, and John Nader will be the man to go to. But whatever I can do to support this, I'll certainly give her a go. So anyways, thanks very much for inviting me here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Petterpiece, and we know you'll be very supportive in whatever direction we go from your provincial standpoint. Keith, did you want to speak and say anything on behalf of Mr. Nader?
What do I say? Yeah, this does sound like a situation we've been in before with other municipalities. I think you've covered a lot of the different issues to cover, such as representing the interests of everyone in the municipality and not just in Drayton, the balance of the costs versus the benefits of adding either a pool or a second ice pad. I know in my end of the riding in St. Mary's, we went through the same discussion about 15 years ago, and we ended up doing both. And there was certainly a great benefit, but also people did have to live with the added cost of that. So that'll be a difficult decision for council to make. For the federal programs, I think as councillors know, Mr. Nader has been clear for several years that his belief is it's better to provide all municipalities with stable formula-based funding rather than going through the kind of complicated federal application-based fundings that we're going through now. But unfortunately, that's not the situation we're in. So we will support you as best we can with your application. And hopefully we can get you the money you very much deserve, no matter what plan you ultimately decide on.
Thank you, Keith. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but I thought it would be kind of humorous to listen to you. So that's thanks to Keith. But yeah, thank you, and thank John for going to advocate for us for the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program. And I do agree that, you know, he has a good idea there that every municipality should be able to receive funding, not just the ones that put an application in. And I know in the past, we've had that discussion, John and I. So very good. Thank you. Any further comments from the public before we close it out?
No.
Okay, Councilor Ottens, go ahead.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if I counted as public.
No.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the one thing that Councillor Craven said about will Moorfield and Alma use a facility like this? And I really prefer that we do not start getting into a Drayton, Moorfield, Alma type of conflict or discussion here, because people from all over Mapleton have always gone to hockey and soccer and baseball in all the towns. Rural people are used to driving no matter what they do. So I prefer to think of this more as a Mapleton sports complex and not a Drayton facility. And I think we need to encourage that thought going forward.
Thank you, Councilor Ottens. Councilor Craven?
I certainly agree with Marlene. We need to be concerned, certainly if Alma and Moorfield people are going to use the facility more than they are now, but we have to do what we can to encourage them to use it, let them know what's there for them, when they can use it, and how important it is for us to have them there.
Councilor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did you want to mention about the green space at the end of Queen Street? I know there's been some comments kind of in different forms about no park on that side of town.
Well, thank you very much, Councilor Martin, for mentioning that. And, you know, as people, maybe some people on this call don't know, the end of Queen Street, there is a large open field. That field is now owned by the Township of Mapleton. We were able to work with the developer up in the area. We were able to purchase 5 acres or just below 5 acres for a $1 value. And it used to be at one time, way back when, it used to be township property. Township sold it for $1 to the developer when he was going to do a golf course. And then now it's turned back over to the township. So we are in development stages. We're looking for funding to develop that park. It's a large park, and we'll certainly work towards getting that done. Again, looking for funding to do the park for that one. This doesn't get included in this this kind of funding, but there will be other funding out there for parks. And I know that Lucas is looking into that as our new parks man, and he's doing those, looking for that funding and looking at designing that park. And he's working with Parks and Rec Committee as well, and making it, you know, accessible as well. That's one of the things we have to do with any of our facilities now, is make them accessible. And I do understand some, you know, with, you know, some of the comments about the sledge hockey and the little lip, and I get that. I've seen the little lip and haven't tried to get the sledge over top of that lip, so I do understand that. And when it comes to accessible playgrounds, you know, there's some great ones out there, and we're certainly going to be looking for them and put them into our parks. I know that I've provided, Minnie and I've talked before, I provided a photo of someone sent me a swing that you could put a wheelchair on, and then it's a nice big swing, and certainly that is very important to have. But thank you, Councilor Martin, for bringing that up. But we do have that park down the end of Queen Street, and will be developed. Mr. Barron, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Your Worship, you're exactly correct. There are trails kind of being worked on now. There's going to be a bit of a parking lot. But because we hadn't budgeted any play equipment for that area, we're either looking for funding or trying to find money within the existing budget to put a park up.
Thank you. Other thoughts and maybe questions before we close it off for the night? just clicking back and forth there, not seeing any. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming online tonight, for providing your thoughts, your ideas, your feedback. Certainly is beneficial for council to hear it. And as we deliberate, then it certainly gives us that information to go with all the other information we'll be receiving for it. So thank you very much. And this will be, it has been recorded and will be on our YouTube in a couple days. Thank you and have a good night, everyone.